Hello everyone, our group is Group 4, consisting of 4 members, Phùng Minh Khánh, Nguyễn Hương Dịu, Văn Đạt, and Nguyễn Hà Vân. So, before moving on into our main topic, I would like to show you guys a short video clip.
Hello people, my name is Lucas. I'm an international student from Germany. Today, I'm going to be trying to persuade Miss Vân out for dinner at my home. So, let's do it. Whoa, hold on, Vân. So today, my family is going to have some German sausages, and I'd really be pleased for you to come over to my house for some dinner.
Sounds great, but I think I still have some assignment to do.
I mean, you can still eat, and after that, you'll do the assignments, no?
But it seems like it's going to rain.
Oh, it's okay. My house have a car and an umbrella, all of that for you. Come on now.
But I'm not really familiar with your mom. I feel shy.
Oh, it's okay. My mom is a very good person. She does all the housework and she takes care of me all the time. So it would be very nice for you to come over. Why doesn't she want to come with me? Like, I don't get what she means. Like, does she want to go or does she not? You know what I'm saying? My mom makes great sausages. My house is really big. It's comfortable. It's cozy. Why won't she go?
Why isn't he being more considerate? I'm really tired, don't want to go, but he keeps inviting me. Why?
So, as you can see from the example, this situation is quite confusing and not both parties didn't have a clear idea of what the other think or imply by words. This is because there is a difference in cultural context for both of them. More specifically, this is the high and low cultural context that we are going to be discussing in this video. So let's take a look at the high context culture definition. The high context culture use imply or hidden message by physical setting or messages presumed to be part of the individual's internalized beliefs, values, norms, and social practice. There is very little information is provided in the coded, explicit, and transmitted part of the message. High context cultures are common in Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America. In these societies, communication is implicit. This means that people read between the lines. Nonverbal communication is equally important to verbal communication. So, on the other hand, we have low contact culture, a culture in which people communicate explicitly. They rely less on context and nonverbal cues and instead convey meaning more directly, such as those in Germany, Switzerland, and the United States. Communication here is explicit and direct. What is said is exactly what is meant, and they value facts, data, and linear logic. To summarize, high context is all about how you say it and who says it, whereas low context is all about what is actually said.
So, what does this type of culture actually do and how can it appear in our lives? To better understand how high and low context culture can manifest in us students' lives, in this case, ULISers, we conducted a survey form to get data from over 100 candidates on various answers to situational questions that ULIS students can come across in learning and overall well-being. As you can see, these are the main questions we want to ask. The impact of cultural context in communication, especially low context and high context styles, can be seen clearly in both academic and personal lives. In learning environments, communication style affects how students understand lessons, work in groups, and respond to feedback. In our survey, nearly 60% of students rated the impact of communication differences on lesson understanding and presentation effectiveness at a high level. This suggests that when students and lecturers use different communication styles, important information can be lost and learning becomes less effective. At the same time, understanding your own communication style can help you reduce misunderstandings, work better with others, and speak with more confidence. In personal life, especially with family and close friends, high context communication appears very often. People tend to speak indirectly, avoid conflicts, and try not to embarrass or offend by others. For example, when parents hint at something instead of saying it directly, 53.9% of students state they would understand an implied message and adjust their behavior rather than asking for direct clarification. In friendship too, indirect communication is common when refusing invitations or dealing with sensitive situations. When asked how they would decline something they did not want to do, 43.8% chose to use vague excuses or indirect language, while only 38.2% say they would refuse clearly and directly. This style helps people save face, protect relationship, and maintain harmony in social life.
However, in university settings, especially in group work and classroom tasks, students often move toward a more low-context style. They prefer clear instructions, specific deadlines, and direct feedback because this helps them complete work more efficiently. For example, when a friend says we should hang out sometime, 36% of students say that they would ask immediately for a specific time and place, while the rest prefer waiting, suggesting indirectly or not taking it seriously. In conflict situations, the pattern is similar. 34.8% say that they would speak directly about what bothered them, but a larger share chose indirect or avoidance strategies, showing that students still balance clarity with social sensitivity. When communication is unclear, many students also choose to ask again for confirmation, which shows that they do not rely on only one style. Instead, they adapt between low context and high context communication on depending the situation, which helps them succeed both academically and socially. What this data tells us is that ULIS students do not communication in just one fixed way. Instead, they adjust their style depending on the situation. In personal life, many students lean toward high context communication, meaning they often rely on hints, share, understand, and the indirect message to protect relationships and avoid conflict. But in university settings, especially in group work or when they need clarity, they move toward low context communication and prefer direct, specific, and explicit information. So overall, this shows that communication is not simply about cultural labels like high context or low context. It is more flexible than that. Students are constantly switching between the two styles based on what they need at that moment. In other words, the most important skill is not choosing one style over the other, but knowing when to be direct and when to read between the lines.
So to answer the question, do taxonomies oversimplify cultures? It is going to be a yes from what we have learned and concluded from our group's research. Taxonomies like high and low context cultures do oversimplify, but they're still useful as a rough lens. What I mean is that first, our data does not show a single dominant style. In multiple scenarios, students split between direct and indirect responses. For example, making plans and handling conflicts both show a mix of behaviors, not a clear high context majority even in refusal. The distribution is mostly balanced, that is 38% direct versus 43% indirect. That alone challenges the idea that a group like ULIS students or Vietnamese culture can be cleanly labeled as high context, yes, and instead what we can see is the variation within the same population, which taxonomies tend to flatten.
Secondly, the same individuals likely to behave differently across the situations, like it's more based on the context where they're in, which is something our open-ended responses strongly reinforce. Many answers like tùy tình huống, thân thì hỏi rõ, không thân thì tự suy đoán, or hỏi đi hoặc hỏi lại để đoán ý, shows that the communication style is context dependent and not fixed. Students shift between directness and indirectness depending on relationship, closeness, emotional risk, or the purpose of communication. This directly contradicts the assumption behind taxonomies that people constantly follow one cultural rule. And third, it is clear in our data that people often combine both styles at times, rather than choosing one dominantly. A lot of responses describe a pattern like first info and then confirm. That's neither purely low context or high context. It's a hybrid strategy between the two. Taxonomies don't capture this layered behavior well because they treat styles as opposites, when in reality they often work together really well. And with all that being said, we do not deny the framework. Low-high context is still useful because it helps people identify tendencies. For example, a strong 53.9% in family context reflects that high context influence, but our findings show that it works just better as a spectrum or a toolkit overall, and not a fixed label.
In summary, the results of the high context and low context communication are not fixed cultural categories, but flexible strategies that students actively switch between. ULISers students tend to use high context communication in personal relationships to maintain harmony and avoid conflict, while shifting toward low context communication in academic settings where clarity and efficiency are more important. Overall, the key takeaway is that the effective communication is not about choosing one style, but about knowing when to use each. Students who can balance directness with sensitivity are better able to reduce misunderstanding, work effectively in team, and build stronger relationships. This adaptability is the most important outcome of our findings and a crucial skill for both academic success and real-life communication. Thank you and see you on our next video.